Book review on video, High Society by Ben Elton. An audiobook published by Isis Audiobooks in 2003. It's on 12 CDs, 12 hours, 45 minutes total running time. Read by Greg Wagland, a person that I've never heard about before coming across this book, but who did a good job reading it. The reason I picked this book to read was basically that I'm, by definition, a Ben Elton fan since I'm a huge Blackadder fan. So I tend to think that he's a really funny guy. And I also read one other book by him, Dead Famous, which I thought was hardly a classic, but it was well written and it was funny and it had a few valuable things to say about our society. So when I picked this book up, I kind of expected this to be a funny read too, but it's not funny. It's not funny at all. So it was a departure from what I expected from this author. Brief recap of the plot. It's set in England, basically today, or I guess around the year 2000 when the book came out. Basically, it's in our current society, or British current society, with a fictional politician trying to create a huge change in the laws of the land. His name is Peter Paget. He is more or less the main character, and he wants to legalize drugs, all recreational drugs. He doesn't think that he stands a great chance of actually getting there, but he wants to try. And through a long, complicated series of events, he does get pretty close to achieving his goal. The story is told in various voices, or rather through various points of view. One is Peter's, one is his family's. He has two daughters and a wife. One is a supposed megastar who started in some like idol type TV show, but has become the biggest selling pop star in the country, and of course is totally whacked out on drugs most of the time. There are a couple of young people who are involved in drugs. One of them, a runaway to London from Scotland. She becomes addicted to heroin, becomes a prostitute. Another is a 19-year-old from Birmingham who is tricked into, or talked into, smuggling heroin from Thailand, rather trying to smuggle heroin from Thailand, because of course she's busted and ends up in jail. So there are a lot of voices like these, I'm sure I'm forgetting some too, that combine to give, I'd say, a surprisingly vivid picture of the drug scene and the political scene, not least, in Great Britain today. I was very surprised by this book because, as I said, I expected it to be funny, but there's very little humor in this, as is only fitting because this isn't really a humorous subject. The book is about the war on drugs and on basically how it has failed. But it's also, it's surprisingly insightful. It doesn't moralize. It doesn't tell you that drugs are bad. It might say it teaches a lesson without being obvious about it. The characters in this book are really, really good. I'm impressed with the characterization. Some of them may be a little one-dimensional, but I have no doubt that there are people just like the characters that Elton has created. I think the language is really good. I think the settings are convincing. Overall, I just was pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought it was a very good read. I could hardly put it down, or at least I could hardly switch off my MP3 player. It was a very well written and very thought out, let's say, attempt at least to influence the debate on drugs. I'm not sure how well he succeeded because in this country he's a very ignored author. I'm not sure he's had more than one or two of his books translated, and I don't think this has been translated. But I think this is a book that a lot of people should read because, concealed as a fictional story, there are a lot of intelligent thoughts and worthwhile thoughts on drugs, on the legalization of drugs in this book. I'm not going to reveal how it ends, but let's just say that politicians are pretty much always the same, whether they be real or whether they be fictional. And some of the characters are probably going to disappoint you. Greg Wagland, he reads this book very well. He puts on different accents very convincingly. And he does go over the top a few times, I thought, but mostly he does a really good job, and I thought he was well suited to reading this book as well. And very English. Overall, this is a book that I heartily recommend to pretty much everyone, although I will say it is a book for adults. It's not a book for young people, because I think, that is to say, young teens and so on, because I do think that it requires a certain level of maturity to really understand what it is that Elton is trying to say here, and to see the bigger picture that he's trying to get at, the consequences of the drug situation as it is today, and the consequences of a potential legalization. I think that requires a bit of life experience to really see that big picture. But if you're interested in this topic, or even if you're not, this is a really good read. Great read on audiobook. Definitely recommended.